See how that looks here. All right. So, have you guys all gotten that little blue binder book yet? Anybody? I think I gave out copies last time of the 1/8 and the 1/7. So today we're probably going to look at the 1/8 side. So if you have that, while we get ready. I'm going to lecture a bit out of 1/8, and then I'm going to let you guys try to do that, the problems from that section 1/8 out of the book. Page 21, yeah. Someday I'll bring that desk over here. Okay. Stay with me now. The whole thing about section 1/8 is really introducing us to something we've sort of talked a little bit about already, the variables and how they work in expressions. We already talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked a little bit about translation. Like if I said 7 less than a number versus 2 more than a number, things like that. Might come up a little more later. Yeah. Okay. And I think I also did something like this here. Actually, let me do some little. So this would say something like evaluate this if a is 3x is negative 2y is negative 4. Now, the one big mistake I noticed, I'm going to write something down, it's a mistake. Can you tell me what somebody did here? What's wrong with what I just did? Or is there any? Maybe it's a trick. Maybe it's a...
X is a minus 2 out of 3.
So you see the mistake they made, and I've seen this a lot, actually. Don't just look at the order that they give you the numbers in. They don't just go in that order. Any x should be replaced by negative 2. They put a 3 there, they being me, made this big mistake. Because I just saw 3, all right, 3, negative 2, negative 4, let me just do this and get this over with. So just be careful about that. It's kind of a missing the point. No matter where x is in the whole thing, it could show up several times even possibly. Wherever I see an x, I could replace it with this because they're telling me that's what it is. So a variable fundamentally it's a number that I don't know yet. That's why it's more difficult, of course. It's easier to work with numbers that I know. The minute you start bringing stuff in that I'm not sure yet, then that's going to make everything a little harder to work with. So here I just plug in, instead of this, in place of x I put negative 2. In place of y, negative 4. And in place of a, 3. I like it. And I highly suggest you put it in parentheses. There's other stuff around it so you maintain the operation. If you just do this, you put a negative 4, then now it looks like 4 minus 4, when really this says 4 times y, right? So it's going to be 4 times whatever I put in for y. All good there? Now, I just made a little assumption that you have to call me on if you're not sure about it. When I have a number sitting next to a letter, that does imply multiplication. So I got to remember, sometimes I have people that don't remember that. I haven't learned that yet, but that's what that means, so that's what I want to have happen here. So now this shouldn't be too bad now that I got the numbers put in there. What do I do first?
Multiplication.
Yeah, so I can do this multiplication here. 4 times negative 4 is?
16.
Yeah, negative 16. I like it. Oh, and then the last guy, negative 2 times 3, negative 6. They're all negative, so I can just add them all and put the negative back on. The same sign, you just add them, put the sign back on. 2 and 16 is 18 and 6, 24, and it's negative. It's like saying I owe somebody $2, I owe somebody else 16, I owe somebody else 6, I owe 24 altogether. Yes, sir?
Is there ever a time like that 4y when it be division, when it doesn't say anything, like when they're together?
it would be specifically if you wanted division with that, you wouldn't put that's multiplication, this, they have to do this, or, you know, even more directly, that, yeah. But you'll probably see this. That always means multiply those two things. Yes, ma'am?
I was just a little confused, why is that negative two? I would have looked at it and thought it was subtract.
I got you. I understand. And you're right. I kind of say things the way that I look at it. And of course, if I look at it that way, I'm going to have kind of a bias towards that way to think that that might be one of the better ways to look at it. But you could also look at that as, that's a 6, and I'm going to subtract it. So it's still going to be minus 6. Is that cool? So you bring the minus, there's the minus. Minus what? 2 times 3, which is 6. So either way you look at it, it ends up the same. So you are actually allowed, this is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Let's see, if I had -7 minus 2. Has anybody ever seen, you can rewrite this as -7 plus -2? You guys seen that? Taking something away is like adding negative. So if I add debt, am I not taking some of your future money away from you? So adding a negative is the same as subtracting that thing. Like adding negative to me, adding to my debt is taking away money from me. So those are the same thing. Because what is positive times negative? Negative. And this actually makes it possible a little bit easier. -7 plus -2, that might be a little more evident that it's -9.
Negative.
Right? That might be a little more obvious. So right here you could say plus -2. So what's -2 times 3? -6. So that's how I kind of do it without changing the signs at all. I just look at a minus as a negative for just a second, because that's what it really is. It really is a negative. And just to blow your minds a little bit, there is no subtraction. There's only adding a negative number. Adding what's called the opposite, the inverse. There is no division. You're just multiplying by the reciprocal. Right? That's, of course, in our future when we get to fractions. Right? Subtraction and division are just convenient ways of looking at those things. So I'm not saying all of a sudden you can't subtract ever again. I'm just saying that realize that subtraction is just adding the opposite of something. Division is just multiplying by the opposite, the reciprocal of something. Okay. All right. So how are we doing so far? Yes, ma'am.
So always when we add negatives, always it's not, we're not subtracting, we have to add then the sign there.
So with subtraction, it's you can look at it a couple different ways. You've got the number line way to look at it. Give myself much room. But if I have -7 and I subtract 2, whenever I subtract, which direction do I go in the number line?
Negative.
I'm going to go down, right? Left. So I've got to go twice down, that's why it's -9. And if I look at it the other way, -7, if I add -2 to that, it's getting even more negative. So that's actually a little bit, that's not so much the number line idea, that's just the idea of, I got negative, I got even more negative, it should be even more negative, like -9 in this case. So you can always look at it. I used to teach this like negative meant you're down in a hole. Subtraction means you're digging even more. So if I'm 7 foot down a hole and I dig 2 feet more, now I'm 9 feet down. So there's a lot of different ways to look at these. You've got to pick one and stick with it so that you don't go a little crazy. You guys semi with me? And of course, if I add something, if I had -8 plus 5, whenever I add a positive number, I'm going to go up. So I'd have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Cool. So that would be -3. A really cool way to think about this, if you think about the whole thing again, adding is pouring sand into a hole. So if I got an 8-foot hole and I pour 5 feet worth of sand in there, I haven't filled it up yet, right? It's still 3 feet down. So I'd have to add 8 just to get back to freaking 0, right? So if I add anything less than 8, I'm still negative. I haven't made it all the way back up just to neutral yet. You guys see that? There's almost too many ways to look at this. I like the money idea because we got to work with money every day. So I owe somebody $8. I find $5 on the street. I'm still in the hole $3. again, I don't want to steamroll anybody. If I am going over a subject and it's a little too quick, just slow me down. Just say, can you explain that again? How to add a negative and all this kind of business? That's no problem with that. Okay. Now, the big thing about this section 1.8 is it's the first place we really step a little bit into equations. We're not getting fully into equations yet. And that's, to me, that's one of my main jobs in this class, is to get everybody in here feeling more comfortable with equations. If you come out of here with the ability to solve basic equations, you're that much more ahead of the game for Math 90, Math 103, or 110. That is the number one place where people screw up, because that's the thing that shows up the most in algebra. You got a word problem, you hate word problems, I understand. But the next step after translation is freaking solving the equation. That should be the easy step. The hard step should be the train starts in Wyoming, oh my God. Once you get the equation set up, that should be, oh thank God, I just got to solve this equation. So here's an example of an equation. And here's an example of an expression. So an expression is like the one we just had. Now I've already forgotten what it looked like, but it's basically that. That's an expression. And this would be an example of an equation. It's pretty obvious to see why they call it an equation, because it's got equal sign. I love it. So if it does not have an equal sign, and they don't tell you what the variables are, you can't get an answer. There's no way, there's nothing. If I said simplify this, there's not a damn thing you can do. I don't have any what's called like terms. I don't have like x plus x is 2x. I can't put anything together. If I said simplify this or solve this, you could do it. But all we're going to do right now is this. Given this is x equal to 2 as solution. No. Because 2 plus 4 is not 7. So that's what you got to show me. You just got to say 2 plus 4 equals 6, not 7. So not a solution. We can all just look at that and see what's the solution. 3. I love it. Because what do you add to 4 to get 7? 3. So let me give you a little more interesting equation. Oh, let's see, Jeff. Take a second, don't say anything. Take a second and... It's my 6th period. Take a second and see if you can figure that out. Don't say anything out loud. So what do you do to check this? Sub it in. So it's just like the x minus 4y plus 2a1 we did earlier, except it's got a little extra level to it. I'm not plugging in to get an answer. I'm plugging in to see if it's an answer, to see if it's the solution. So if I plug a 1 in, I get 1 minus 4 over 1. And what's 1 minus 4? Yeah. You do 4 minus 1 is 3, and you put the negative on because it's a bigger one, so that's negative 3. And that does equal negative 3. Check. So that is a solution because it makes it true. So a solution to an equation is any value that makes that equation true. And some equations have no answer, believe it or not. Some equations have one answer, and some equations have 2 answers, 3 answers, up to an infinite number of answers. Cool. You'll never have to list out that many answers. Okay. How are we feeling so far? Is that decent? So it's just one step away from just the straight up plug and chug. It is still plug and chug. The actual thing is, you don't get a number, you check to see if your resulting thing is true. So if, what about this here? try that one out. Don't say anything. So what do you get when you plug this guy in?
9.
Yeah, so 3 squared 9 minus 4 times 3 plus 5. 3 squared is 9. 4 times 3, 12. 9 minus 12, negative 3. I like it. Plus 5 is 2. And 2 is not 11, so no. Cool. That's all you gotta do for those. So let's do this. I've been talking way too long. So go ahead and if you've got the blue binder book, turn to page 21. If you got the handout from the other day, it's on the back, section 1.8. If you don't have either one of those things, maybe sidle up next to somebody that does. And I just want you to start working on that section 1.8 stuff. Call me over if you need some help. It's page 21 in this here blue book. I think I might have, yeah, I do. I have 2 extra copies of the handout from yesterday. If somebody needs it. Oh, cool. Thank you. Huh? You get, oh, you get the book? Yes, sir.
The only thing I was getting mixed up on is